A lot of information, a lot of things going on in college football. There are a ton of jobs open. You have USC, you have LSU, you have Washington, TCU, Tech, Washington State, FIU, Akron, UMass, and let's not forget UConn was open. Jim Moore Jr. took the job. So, there's been a ton of movement here, and there's 130 teams in college FBS football. I mean, we're sitting here getting to the point where almost 10% of the jobs were open during the year, which the NFL, they turn coaches over every year, and some years, heck, almost 25% of coaches are getting turned over. You typically don't see that in college football, and you usually don't see it during the season. Now, our guys, Chad and Hutton and everybody over at Outkick 360, they did a great job of ranking these, and they ranked them off in the order that I just listed, with USC being the premier job, followed by LSU. They talked about, I think, USC, you can win the Pac-12. You win the Pac-12 and you're USC, you're probably going to the college football playoff. LSU, there's going to be a lot more criticism, going to be more critical. More people will be at your games. Tougher road to get to your championship game for the SEC. And then it's going to be hard to win that. So while if you win, you're definitely in. Maybe if you come in second, you could also get in, but it's a much, much tougher road. But I don't want to get into all the rankings. I want to get into why I think this is happening, because that to me is more interesting. You have Justin Fuente in his 6th season there getting fired. Jimmy Lake getting fired at Washington for, separating players. You get a little physical. Yeah, the guy had a helmet on, for heaven's sake. You're talking about a coach. Like, I joke with this. You're getting physical with players. I mean, what level of physicality are you getting to? What are you doing to them? These are grown men in the prime of their lives, and an older coach who probably doesn't work out at all, or works out a little bit, but isn't in great shape. Dude had a helmet on, trying to separate them. Things get heated. I don't think Jimmy Lake should have lost his job. Whatever. It's neither here nor there. Why is this happening? I think the conference movement is a big piece. This realignment, playoff expansion, all of these things are up in the air. Schools are jockeying. They want to get the best guys they can to make sure as this thing settles out, they're in a good spot moving forward to be able to compete at the highest level and to be able to go in there and maybe win their conference, especially like in a place like the Big 12. You look at with TCU, and Texas Tech making their decisions, to potentially move on. Even in the ACC, Tech, you would have thought they'd be dominating. Frank Beamer was there. They were really good. All of a sudden, following the man, and some things move around a little bit, and it's not that good of a job anymore, and you're not dominating the way that you used to. But all this conference movement and the fact that, even in the ACC, Clemson was down, you would have thought 6 years ago, hey, there's no great team in the ACC. Why couldn't that great team be Tech? Well, they've struggled, and it's really been the last 3 seasons with Fuente. So this conference movement, this playoff expansion, I think has got everybody a little uneasy. Get that head start on hiring your coach, because you get the best guy out there. It's going to obviously put you in a good situation. The transfer portal is a big piece of this. You get your coach, they can start, plucking guys from the portal. And you saw what Mel Tucker did. You can get good in a hurry if you just get maybe a handful of the right guys to supplement a roster. That's not too bad. So that's a big piece of it. But on a larger scale, I think a lot of it is now Tennessee as Josh Heupel, and I think he's doing a great job, and he's going to have Tennessee back, I think, to where they're respectable. I don't know if they ultimately can challenge Georgia and Florida, but they're going to be as good as I think they possibly could be under anybody. But he's a good young coach. But you look at Florida State, heck, you look at Florida, you look at Texas, you look at Nebraska, you look at USC. These are some of the premier programs in all of college football. The history of college football cannot be told without these schools and some of the names that used to walk the sidelines there as coaches and as players. And I think what schools fear now, especially if maybe you're a USC, which I just listed them in that, LSU, Tech, who was built under Frank Beamer, but what have they really done since then? Is you worry about falling into that pit that those schools did, where you make a bad hire, you get a second bad hire. Dare I say, like Michigan had 2 bad, then they got Jim Harbaugh. Regardless of what you think of them, they're ranked in the top 10 again. You have Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. You have 2 bad hires. All of a sudden, you're almost wasting a decade of your program, and it's real hard in college football today. in a what have you done for me lately, where players aren't necessarily looking at, hey, the history, the pageantry, all these different things. They don't care as much about that. Players are sitting here looking at how good are you right now? What can you offer me? Are you on national TV? Are you a big time brand? Are you in the playoff? What's the NIL stuff look like? And there's a fear. You become Nebraska. You become, everyone says Texas is going to be back. When? This year? I mean, losing to Kansas. There's more talent on that Texas roster than there is Kansas. That loss should never happen. It shouldn't have happened. Florida, Dan Mullen. I mean, listen, they were good. You're playing Bama, SEC championship game. You've got good players. All of a sudden, dip down. I mean, it's like they've been great since Urban left. They've had spurts. They've had years in and out, but they haven't been to that continuous dominance that you're used to. And so you're worried about becoming one of these programs where you slip into it for about, it seems like a year or two. And then all of a sudden you realize like you're 2 or 3 coaches in, and it's been almost 10 years. Florida State's going through that right now. They got to get Norvell right. He's got to be the guy. He's got to turn this ship, and he doesn't have all day to turn it. And so, LSU, they don't want to mess with that and go through the Ed Orgeron cycle. And maybe he's won a national title. He's been great. If you risk, burn another year or two with him, and then you hire the wrong coach, all of a sudden, poof, there goes 6-7 years. And now you're way behind some of the other schools like Ole Miss. They got Lane, they're coming. And maybe Lane goes to LSU. Heck, I don't know. But I think you look at all these jobs, and I try to think of the coaches that could come and be a part of these jobs. I think there's a void of talented young coaches in college football. There used to be more coaches, good coaches, than there were elite jobs. Now you spin through this so quick. If you don't build quickly, you're moving on to the next. And some of these guys that they're throwing out here, it's like, I'm someone that follows college football, and I have to look them up of who's going to fill all these positions. Who's going to be a guy that's going to step in there? Like talked about James Franklin to USC. I don't know if that's a done deal anymore. That looked good. I mean, who's going to LSU? Is it Dave Aranda, Mel Tucker? Like, okay, so you start getting through that. All of a sudden, you start getting down the line a little bit. Who the heck are you hiring at some of these places? TCU, where are you ranked? Virginia Tech, where are you ranked on the coaching, pecking order? Who are you going to get to take these jobs? You're going to have to overpay. And that divide now, Big Ten and SEC up here with dollars. A lot of the other schools down here. So you're going to have a hard time if you're not in one of those elite conferences being able to pay out the type of money and compete at that level because your TV deal is not matching up. And so that's what I think some of this issue is with the coaching carousel and how they're going to fix it and how you're going to be able to kind of pour in and find these coaches that'll solve these problems. A lot of it's playoff, NIL, all these things that have changed and these TV deals have gotten stretched. And there's kind of a void as these jobs keep opening up quicker and quicker. No one wants to get left behind.